I call Jan Logie, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure I rise to speak on behalf of the Green Party and the short call I'll be taking on this, the Taxation, KiwiSaver, HomeStart and Remedial Matters Bill, which has come to us kind of out of the blue, and there hasn't been a huge amount of opportunity to absorb the detail of this bill, and which is covering two key things. One, which is KiwiSaver entitlement, which is supposedly what the government is doing to help young families into buying their first home, as we've just heard from the previous member. But it is also dealing with a change for veterans, and from what I can make out of what's in the bill, it's putting their payments on a parity with ACC. And I am slightly bewildered why we have this in a piece of legislation coming to the House at this time, when the last Parliament dealt very comprehensively with a very large piece of legislation called the Veterans Amendment Act. Which was the result of years of work by the Law Commission, and this Parliament spent many, many hours on that piece of legislation. And I am at a loss to understand why now the government is bringing us another piece of legislation and titling it a remedial matter to change an aspect of what was in that legislation. It is very confusing, and if there is a reason that isn't the government's incompetence, then I will look forward to hearing about that within the Select Committee process. And the Greens are supporting this legislation to Select Committee, partly to examine that issue, because as we spent many hours in this House traversing, those issues are important. When this House, and it feels very present at the moment when the government has made decision to be sending people to training into a conflict environment at the moment where we know lives are at risk, and people's lives are lost and are damaged by decisions of this House, and it is critical that we give respect to those people for the decisions that are made that they have to live with. But I would like to spend a little bit more time just talking around some of the discussions around housing that have come up in the debate so far, and we've heard from Nick Smith about how the situation of housing affordability is so improved under this government. It's extraordinary, isn't it? The conversations we hear in the media, the statistics I read, just that came out from the Household Economic Survey just last week, that showed that actually, while household incomes have increased by 9.1% since 2012, the cost of living has increased by 11.1%, and that is largely being driven by the disproportionate increase in the cost of housing. And yet, that's not part of this government's reality. Apparently all those people that are struggling to pay their mortgage, that are struggling to pay the rent, that are struggling to even get into a house in Auckland, they're just deluded. It's really actually nothing to see here. Everything's fine, according to this government. And I really, again, it's one of those moments where I'm wondering what reality they're living in. Who are they talking to that is finding housing affordability improved? It's no one I'm talking to, I must say. And maybe I'm not talking to enough bankers. And maybe I need to get out of my bubble and go and talk to more bankers and have a more balanced perspective, because the people I'm talking to are struggling and they're finding it difficult. And this piece of legislation, when we have an affordability crisis, and I will use that word based on the experiences I'm hearing, when we've got a supply crisis, when we've got a quality crisis, and we've got a security of tenure crisis, is this piece of legislation going to help? The answer is no. It is not going to help the level of crisis. It may help some people, like that $1,000 when their income is at a certain level, that may just push them over. And on that basis, we're not going to be curmudgeonly to say we won't support that in principle, because even like a pinch of salt sometimes is helpful to the cooking, but really we need a whole lot more flavour and a whole lot more work going on in this area when it is a crisis.